Hi, welcome to the Book Corner with me, Mish Atagana. Let's discover new worlds together. Hello, and welcome back to the Book Corner with Mish Atagana. I'm your host, Mish. Today, we're going to talk about a book as poetic as the title suggests. It is called There Are Rivers in the Sky by Elf Shaf. Guys, I don't know. I'm going to say Shafak. There are rivers in the sky. Um, two things, right? When I first kind of saw this book is I was just like, a title like this, I gotta know. I gotta get involved with the story. And it took me a while to read this. I think I first learned about it sometime last year, but I only picked it up just like in February sometime because it's first of all, it's a really thick book. And as you guys know, my TBR is long. And I keep trying to make sure that I'm doing the right balance between fantasy, speculative fiction, and kind of, all the like magical realism and all of this stuff. But when I started reading this book, from the title, I knew I was gonna love it. But even on the first page, it actually caught me. This book is a sweeping, multi layered narrative that weaves together the stories of three distinct characters across different time periods and location, all connected by the enduring presence of water. It explores the themes of memory, loss, displacement, and the interconnectedness of history. Here is something. And also, oh, by the way, remember I said to you guys I was going to try audiobooks? I did. This is the book. So I was audiobooking and reading at the same time because I'm that person. I couldn't just do the audio. It was weird just listening and with nothing to do. So I literally just read along and it was such an immersive process. You know what? This is not the episode for it, but I'm definitely going to have to do an episode on just audiobooks and doing audio while you're reading. Like I gotta do that because that was it was such a trip. I loved it. It was like watching a movie. Like it was so good. Anyway, so while I was reading, there's a quote from the book, and those of you that follow me on social media, you will see I posted this quote where it says, "The water remembers. It is humans that forget." And that really stuck with me because I really do. I've always had such a reverent place for water. I believe in the healing power of water. I believe in the corrosive power of water. Any of you that kind of studied basic geology or geography or even biblical texts will know the story of like great floods and how water cuts through rock and water cuts through sand and divides, and continental drift is literally the breaking apart of this planet or the landmass of this planet by the intense power of water. So I have literally respected water my whole life. Even in my own writing, I use water quite a lot as a symbolism. So to read a book like this that really kind of heroes the power of water, it's incredible for me. So if you love books that challenge the way you see the world, stories that read like poetry, um, and characters who navigate literal and metaphorical storms, then this episode is for you. So let's get into There Are Rivers in the Sky. At its core, There Are Rivers in the Sky follows three characters whose lives are shaped by the rivers that they live close to. At its core, There Are Rivers in the Sky follows three characters whose lives are shaped by the rivers that run through their respective homes. Their journey spans centuries, continents, linked by the power of water as a source of life, history, and personal transformation. And I think that this is one of those books where I want to be true to my notes because there's also so much about displacement of a people, their culture that is in here that I want to be super respectful to that and the way I talk about it. So while I was reading, I actually took meticulous notes with this, and it was so good that I was also doing bits of audio. So it also just allowed me to just sink into the story. Um, so we begin with Arthur, 1850s by the River Thames in London. Born into poverty, Arthur possesses an extraordinary memory. which grants him an opportunity beyond the station. His journey is intertwined with ancient Mesopotamian texts, and a quest that leads him deep into the secret of the past. And I quite like the story of Arthur. Arthur's like he's got an eidetic memory. Like if he sees something, if he reads something, if you tell him something, he will remember exactly what it is. Um, and there's like a scene at the beginning where they describe the day Arthur was born, and he's literally his mother doesn't like want him because they're poor, and she's like, I can barely feed myself. How am I going to feed a child? And the person who kind of helps his mother have this baby says to her, this child is going to bring you like good fortune and all this other stuff. And as they hold baby Arthur to her, and she's kind of thinking about trying to feed Arthur, a single snow drop falls into his mouth. And it's so interesting because the narrator kind of goes, years from now, when Arthur is asked what snow tastes like, without knowing, he will remember the day he was born, and he will answer without hesitation that it tastes like mother's milk. And it's so like the scene where Arthur does this in the story, kind of it gives you goosebumps because you go, whew, like damn, like what a powerful connection, what a way to bring like these two time periods together. And then we have Naren, who her story takes place in 2014 by the river Tigris in Turkey. She is a Yazidi girl living near the Tigris. Naren is forced to flee her home due to conflict. She embarks on a perilous journey with her grandmother to reach a sacred valley, finding strength in the resilience and the wisdom of generations. And I love like Naren's story for me as well was so like poignant in the way that she learns from her grandmother about the river and the secrets of the river and the Yazidi people. I knew very little about the Yazidi people before I read this. It's something I've heard about in visits to like Turkey and just like general studies because I studied ancient languages and ancient cultures when I was at university. But I also don't know if this book is the authority on the Yazidi culture and the Yazidi faith, but it's definitely something that I feel was just like so, it was handled in a way that if it was my culture and my heritage, I would feel there was respect that's been given to it. But I'm also going to go learn more about the Yazidi faith just to also make sure. Um, and then Zuleika. So Zuleika, 2018, River Thames, London. She is a hydrologist seeking solace on kind of this houseboat she's rented after going through a personal crisis and leaving her husband. Her story literally is about self-discovery, a connection to her homeland, and unearthing forgotten histories through waters present in human civilization. I also love there's like a scene where Zuleika begins to tell us her story where she kind of goes, I don't know why my mother chose to name me after like this temptress of the Bible, Potiphar's wife, and all this like bad stuff. And I really also like that the contrast where she meets somebody else who, when she tells them their name, they go, "What a powerful name! What an incredible character to be named after." In relation to a different Zuleika, not even Potiphar's wife. So I also thought, what perspectives other people bring to our own lives where we see smallness, they see greatness. I really like that. Um, so for me, like each of the characters or each of our protagonists, they really experience their experiences are not only profoundly personal, but their external struggles offer like something so unique when it comes to like the overarching themes of the novel, right? So for Arthur, where it is a deeply inquisitive scholar, like Arthur wants to learn. He's a sponge for knowledge. He's driven by that insatiable thirst for knowledge. Through him, we get to explore a Victorian London, and we are fascinated with it. We also get to see like the world of like this Victorian Londoner or this Victorian who's fascinated with ancient history and sees so much power in it, sees so much understanding and questions, it's like, why would you say that about a people you don't really understand? Why would you think this is who they are? So I really like that. And there's a lot of like colonization and appropriation and kind of the fact that art is taken from its homeland into like the British Museum, and it's so interesting just looking at that. And I also like the way that they look at memory and how it shapes our understanding of the world. And then in Naren, who is a survivor of so much, like we hear like her story and how it highlights brutality, and the brutality of war, of terror, and also the fragility of, the human spirit and resilience. And I think about, like, there's so much of displaced peoples here that I had to take a breath to kind of be like, there's just, when we think about just the way the world is right now and so many displaced peoples because of so much war and everything that's happening, um like Narin's story almost is a mirror to some of that stuff. And I love, like, how her sections in the story, they're deeply, deeply emotional. Uh, and they really also look at, because she learns about the world from the stories her grandmother tells, who learned it from the stories her grandmothers told her. So that oral tradition and history through oral tradition, I also really like that. And also the power of ancestral wisdom. And I have I have not read a lot of novels that has given so much power and such respect and dignity to the power of ancestral wisdom. So I really like that. And Zuleika, where we get our modern voice, is very much about balancing science and spirituality. Her search for identity. I mean, no one is more lost than Zuleika. I think, Zuleika, pretty much, we begin with Zuleika, with her almost planning the end, because she doesn't feel like she belongs. She doesn't feel she belongs anywhere, and often looking for a home in a place where so much is available to her. And I really kind of, I enjoyed the way that her search kind of brings her into, like, this sense of belonging or becoming. As I love that, as a hydrologist, she kind of sees water through both the practical and the poetic, right? It's like, how do I bridge a tangible story or tangible thing with the mythological? And I also love that for all of them, water meant different things. For Arthur, water was like this thing that was always around him. It was the cause of death. It was the cause of so much pain, because for him, water was very much the River Thames where he grew up, and water is the poison that killed his brother because of cholera. But also, water is how he got lost in the world of ancient Mesopotamia, and the River Tigris, and needing to understand beyond himself and who he gets to be. Um, and when Naren, water is part of who she is. It is part of the Yazidi world. It is faith. It is water is in their bones, right? And for Zuleika, water is her job. It's her passion. It becomes her identity. So I think, like, each of these characters, they carry their own burdens, but the journey intersect because of water. And I also like how, beyond the interconnectedness of the theme, where it's a case of, okay, I I know the story of water because my people tell the story of water, or I know the story of water because I am sitting by water. It is one of the things, like, so the scene I tell you guys about, when Arthur is asked, what does snow taste like? And we go back to those early chapters where the narrator tells us one day he's going to get asked what snow tastes like, and he's going to say, like mother's milk. What he doesn't realize, or at least the way the narrator says, is like, it is the same, the rain that's falling on him in that moment is the same water that made up the snow that he saw, that fell on him the day he was born. It is water with memory. It is water that has traveled back up to the sky and has come back again. And I like that water is connected through time. Water doesn't begin now and end now. It begins today. It began in the past. It is existing in the future. So I really like that. Um, the greatest strength of this book, I think, is the world building and the atmosphere in which we get. It feels vast yet super intimate. Like, we're in a big world. We are in Turkey. We are in London. We are in ancient Mesopotamia. We are in the big world, but it feels so intimate. It is it literally is like nature plays a crucial role in the storytelling. Again, water. The rivers themselves are characters. They're witnessing history. They're carrying the secrets of the people, and they're shaping human destinies. The way the author describes these elements makes them feel tangible, almost alive. It is the kind of book where you can hear the rain. You don't just like you hear the rain, you feel the wind, and you sense the quiet in a river running its course. And I think like there's a point where I think Zuleika is talking to her uncle about studying some rivers in Paris, and they go, "Oh, we've always wanted to see the Seine, or the Seine is beautiful." They make a comment about the Seine, and she goes, "Actually, no, this is a different river that runs under Paris that's been forgotten." And it's like, and it's this kind of thing where it's looking at this power, this character that is constantly in the world, off the world, out of the world, all the time, and every time. And I thought that was really, really cool. It's like there's immersive descriptions that just pull you in, making you feel as though you're traveling the world with a singular drop of water. Um, like when I look at the the way kind of the story unfolds and also concludes, like for me at its core, There Rivers in the Sky is about movement, both the physical and the emotional. It explores themes of grief, healing, and the idea that nothing in life is ever truly still. And I think that's so important because we are we live in perilous times. We truly do. Um and I think about how so much of our current age, we want stillness. We want to sit still and we want to take breaths, and we want to almost hold and freeze the world in place because any little crack, it feels like everything is going to shatter and fall away. And I think the way this book looks at it is like they exist already. Those cracks are there. There's constant movement, and what has moved will continue to move. And the fact that a singular drop of water can travel around the world and be in different times, for me, felt so powerful in just the control we do or do not have of our own lives or the world around us. So I kind of really like that. I also like that it's just like water shifts, like it is like it shifts and it shapes and it heals and it finds new parts and it does different things. And when you look at a story that truly explores like themes around grief and healing and the idea of nothing stays still, maybe it's a good thing that water is moving and shaping and reshaping and finding new ways to move forward. It also addresses a lot of um, and the destruction of cultural histories, particularly through Arthur and Naren's point of view. It raised a lot of question about what we preserve and what we lose in the currents of time. Like, here's how I think about that, right? Because one, author's first experience with like ancient ah, Mesopotamia. Guys, I'm really sucking at pronunciations these days. Like his first experience of like this ancient world, um, is he sees the cover of this book, looks at the title, kind of commits it to memory, right? And then he's walking in front of the British Museum, and there are these giant winged creatures that are being like brought in and being like this huge statues with like wings, and it's like the head of a bull, and it's like the strange creature he doesn't know, and is asking. He asked the museum curator or the guy there and goes like, "What is this thing?" He's shocked by it, and it turns out that it is a creature out of like this world that he just read a cover of a book for, Mesopotamia. Wow, I said it earlier and I can't say it anymore. It's been a long day. But it's like it's it's like kismet where this thing that enthralled him, here is another encounter. And this statue has been taken from its homeland to this museum where it will never see its homeland again. And we get to see kind of almost not necessarily like a erasure. And I think, anyone that's been to any of the big museums around the world, the British Museum, anyone that's been to like um, the Museum of Natural History in New York and all these museums, they're all these incredible pieces of art that are from around the world. that were kind of liberated from their home, and it's like what is left for the people of that region? And I really think that's an important question to ask. Where when I walk the British Museum, I see so much African art and so much African, like, stories being told at the walls. And I can't help but think these are our stories being told without our permission. And do we even know those stories, and do we know them well? And we see a lot of that from Arthur's point of view of like him curious to learn and wanting to go to where the stories come from and learn more. And we see Naren where a dam is about to be built where her home is, and all of that history, all of those people about to be erased because of the simple act of just like domestic colonization and like international one. So for me, I was so enthralled by just that part of just like how the erasure of a people and the displacement of a people and their stories can easily take place in this way. So cultural heritage is a huge theme. Um, it's it's a very meditative read. Like it's kind of a novel that makes you pause, reflect, appreciate the quiet moments in life. It doesn't rush you towards a conclusion. It just allows you to savor every step. It allows you to move like a slow river. It really does. Um, and I enjoyed like I'm really enjoying these kind of books where the stakes are not high, but the cultural implication and the political, the identity, the identical implications are so important and they're so intense that you as a reader have to take a minute to pause and reflect on who you are, who you want to be, and your place in the world. Um, so for me, this is a book that is thought provoking. It is as poetic as the title suggests. Like I said, it invites the reader to explore the intersection of identity, exile, and the emotional landscapes we all navigate. And that is a wrap for There Are Rivers in the Sky on the Book Corner with Mish Atagana. If you've read There Are Rivers in the Sky, I would love to hear more of your thoughts. Or if there are more books like this you want to recommend to me, please do. You can find me on Instagram at GlowMish, or you can find me on TikTok at Books and Sneakers. Let's explore these incredible worlds together and let's flow like a river that is constantly in motion and constantly reshaping. And I will see you all next time.
And we out.